Okay.
Welcome, more gamers. This is Doug with 2 Plus Tough, and today we are taking a look at the Eldar Craft World Star Collecting Box in our ongoing Star Collecting Box review series for Warhammer 40k 8th Edition. Now, if you're new to this channel, I urge you, please so much, click subscribe down below. We're going to be going through these boxes one by one, updating them as the codexes are released. But yeah, we're just going to have a good discussion about where to start with these armies, what the value of the box is, what the models inside of it do and how it functions, and does it give you a good entry point into the army itself. Today we're taking, like I said, a look at the Eldar, so let's see what you get inside the box. Alright, this one's pretty short and sweet. You get a Farseer on a Sky Runner, 1 Fire Prism, and 3 Wind Riders. Alright, so this is going to be really quick, kind of bird's eye view here. There are very few models in this box. You get 5 models total. Admittedly, they're all on the vehicle of some kind, but that really, it's going to matter more when we have a discussion about if this is a good description of the army at the end. This box used to be the bane of existence in, say, 7th edition, when Eldar jet bikes were ridiculous. I mean, they were actually too good, right? The whole rules and FAQs were built around them because they just were so good that they weren't fun, right, to play against. Some of those top level players, as they kept crushing people, didn't have fun playing them. Meta shifted around them. So it's really nice to look at this with fresh eyes and new rules and seeing, I'm going to be frank up front, they tone this way down. And I think that's really good. Now, one thing we can look at pretty quickly here, see that this box is going to be all about speed. So let's take a look at how that looks for the individual units. Going to start off with the Farseer on a Sky Runner. Now, he has a lot of things going for him. He is obviously a Psyker. He can manifest two psychic powers a turn. On one of those, he can reroll any number of die just because of his special abilities allow him to do so. I'm surprised that he's actually more defense-minded than I thought he was going to be. He has a 4-up invulnerable save, and he has a 5-up save against mortal wounds, meaning that even though he's a frail little dude on a bike, he actually presents himself as being much tougher in game to a more kind of wider variety of attacks. You can upgrade his weapon to be what's called a singing spear. Basically, it's a spear with a kind of a gun at the end, and they can shoot as well. It kind of gives them a shooting attack. The reason I think that that is super important is simply because he has the fly keyword, which we're going to talk about a little bit here, because fly allows him to back out of combat and still be able to fire. So it kind of adds a little bit of versatility. He gets a better gun, you know, a slightly better attack. He always wounds in a 2-up on these things, so it does add a lot to the model on the tabletop. Now, of course, you can build him as an Autarch on a Sky Runner. However, I really think you want to stick with the Farseer. The reason I say this is because the Eldar discipline, I think it's Runes of Fate, is really good. It's a massive force multiplier, and you're going to need that when you have so few models. When you can reroll hits and make your opponent do things, and you can pick a target and everyone's better at hitting them, those kinds of things. Those kind of dice manipulation mechanics are going to be what, first of all, Eldar are all about. Secondly, what this box desperately needs, simply because of the low model count in it. Next up, we're going to talk about the Wind Riders. This is kind of the, like I say, basic infantry of the box. It's your jet biker guys. They are incredibly fast. They have a 16-inch move base, and if they ever advance, you don't even roll for it, you just get an extra 16 inches. So that's a lot of maneuverability. If this were in a full army, I would say these guys are perfect for grabbing objectives and harassing the sides, things like that. Weapon options? Not so much. It used to be that scatter lasers were one of the best things in 40k. These guys were the terror of the game for a little while. Now, the choices are not so clear. You can take different ones based on what you need, but none of them stand out as being particularly grandiose at anything. See, unlike the Dark Eldar jet bikes, the Reavers, who are very anti-infantry. However, one of them can take a dedicated anti-vehicle gun, like they can have a huge blaster on there. The Skyrunners really can't. There's no super high strength weapon. I think it maxes out at 6, something like that. So there's nothing dedicated to anti-vehicle. You can wound them if you're lucky, but that's not really what you're looking for. You're looking for something that's dedicated and suited to a role. On that note, they are really good at clearing out infantry, so just keep that in mind, that they kind of lost some of the versatility they had in the last edition. However, if you're looking at something that can speed up, clear out infantry, retreat out of combat, still shoot, go to objective, and kind of zip around and harass people, they really do fit the bill. They really are terrific at that role. One thing to note for these guys, and also the Farseer, is that when you're on a bike, you get +1 your toughness. It's just kind of built into your stat line. So having a tough 4 Eldar model is actually better than you would think, simply because usually toughness 3 means you get really wounded really easily on a lot of things. Strength 6 weapons are not that uncommon, and so I think just to keep that in mind, they are a little tougher, a little more resilient than your regular Eldar models. Obviously they have different defensive stats, wounds, and like that, so keep that in mind when you're playing them. And last model in the box is the Fire Prism. This is kind of your tank dude, and so he has 12 wounds, a 3-up save, and man, that makes him pretty survivable. You know, and not in the sense that like he'll endure anything. He's not as like battle hardened as like Land Raider or something like that. But the fact of the matter is, for being a light, highly maneuverable tank, that's actually a really good stat line. At least it's not quite the empty beer can level that like Dark Eldar Raiders have. So that's kind of my spectrum here. The Fire Prism has the Prism Cannon, which is actually one of my favorite weapons in the game right now, simply because of how versatile it is. Basically, you get 3 profiles, and they kind of range from being more anti-infantry with more shots and things like that to a very focused beam, which is super high damage for larger vehicles. So, and there's like another one that's kind of in the middle. It's going to take practice for you to learn which mode to fire on and when, and kind of the pros and cons of each. Kind of get used to that, maybe even math hammer of what you should expect from each shot. That being said, having that kind of versatility built into a model without having to literally model it, like choose a weapon and stick to it, is actually super valuable. Like, it is incredibly valuable for new players to be able to just kind of swap and not have to worry about the whatever, like the WYSIWYG attachment that they have for the gun is. So keep that in mind. I think it's a huge thing. It's a big value, and it's a really cool gun. Alright, so that's everything in the box here. So kind of backing up, looking at the box itself, I always ask 2 questions when I review a Star Collecting box. One, does this box represent well the faction that you're getting into? And secondly, is this an actual good start model-wise to that faction? I would say probably not to both of them. We'll go one by one here. So does this box represent Eldar as a whole? Well, yes and no, sort of. They are faster. They do have a lot of psychic powers. I'm really glad they included a Farseer, or at least an option for one. However, unless you want to go dedicated jet bike army, even then you're probably not going to use a lot of Fire Prisms. Kind of hard to justify buying multiple of these boxes unless you want that specific army type. And so that's going to be the thing here, where something like the Dark Eldar box is just good because it has everything you would ever want in a Dark Eldar box. Same thing with like Astra Militarum and those kinds of things, Space Marines, where it's very versatile. Like, this is very narrow on a very set course of models in Eldar. It doesn't introduce really anything about Wraith units or what are some other cool things, Aspect Warriors, like those kind of very iconic Eldar things that are so flavorful to the army, you have no exposure to in this box. So in terms of getting a new person, like, to show them like this is what Eldar are like, with this box, I don't think it really does the trick. I think if they had done, say, a unit of their basic Guardians with maybe like a Psyker of some kind, and then maybe the Fire Prism as well, just something bigger, but you know what I mean, like, or the jet bikes instead, something like that, where you kind of got used to like this is what an Eldar is, this is what the kind of the stat line is like for the rest of the army, and those kinds of things. It might have done better. So it's not a bad box, it's not a bad way to get into the game at all. It's just it doesn't really personify Eldar Craft World as a whole. Which kind of ties us into the second question, is this a good starting point in terms of the models that you get? And I would say, like I said earlier, only if you like the jet bikes. If you want to do literally anything else with this army, no, not really, and that's unfortunate. You know, I kind of compare it to the Dark Eldar one, right, the Drukhari box, where the Drukhari box is perfect for any Dark Eldar player, except if you want to play Homunculus Covens, right? There's just nothing in there that is very into Homunculus Covens, right? Keyword-wise, the Raider is the only thing that can, and nothing else flavor-wise. Kind of opposite of that, There's a lot of cool Eldar stuff, Craft World stuff, but this only does one thing. This only does the jet bike aspect of it, which is good and it's very effective, but I think you lose a lot of the initial coolness of, like, you know, if a new person were to walk into a store, look at the shelf of models, I don't think that this one stands out as being particularly awesome. Which is really a shame, because Eldar are a really cool army. They have some of the coolest units, the coolest models, awesome backstory. You know, I mean, they can do amazing things and frankly look amazing doing it. And I think it's unfortunate this box in the new edition doesn't really personify that. When it comes down to it, I think the box kind of lacks model diversity, meaning there's no foot troops, there's no really light chaff things, there's no, like I said, specialty things like aspect warriors. I think it lacks a lot of diversity. It lacks a lot of weapon options. The Fire Prism has a credible gun on it, but the jet bikes, their weapons don't really matter that much. Farseer, his spells do, and that's really important, is his spells matter, but not weapon-wise. Now, the truth of the matter is, I hate being negative on this channel. I really do. I'm not a GW fanboy, but here's the thing. All kinds of people watch these videos. People who have already bought the box and are trying to figure out how to build it. People who want to know if these models they like are the ones they should buy. And I'm going to tell you at this. If you like the models in this box, you should buy it. It just, nothing else said. It is an awesome set of models for a great price. What I'm saying is, in terms of, and when someone approaches this as a brand new player with no idea what the Eldar are, can he or she glean what that faction is like based on the contents of this box, in terms of like narrative and the actual models in it? And I just don't think so. That's the question that I'm asking. If you are enjoying this box, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I know lots of people who have bought multiples of these. You can buy this and then from there, say, you know, get a bunch of like Guardians and all the cool stuff, or you can just make an Outrider attachment full of these things. You can do a lot of stuff with it. I hate being negative because I don't want anyone to feel like they made a mistake when they purchase these things. That's kind of what I think 8th edition is about, moving away from, where like you have to have kind of thing, and moving into like the I get to play with blank. Well, this is a set that's like, if you like bikes, you get to play with all of the bikes. If you don't like to play with bikes, this is probably not the best value for you. It doesn't mean it's a bad set. It just means for you and your specific needs, this doesn't have the oomph that I think other boxes do. What I'd really like to hear is from you Eldar players, Craft World specifically. Leave in the comments down below where you think people should expand. There are so many ways to go from this. Like I said, if you like bikes, buy more bikes, or buy another box of this. If you want to start with this as kind of like your fast attack, like, you know, harasser kind of section, and move into more your ground troops, that's definitely a way to go. But I'd love some advice from it. If you leave a comment that is detailed and very instructive for new players, I'll pin it to the top right down below here, because I would love to be able to see the community kind of helping each other and do those kinds of things. Now I have one more video to do in the Xenos Index 1, and we're actually going to tackle Ynnari, looking at the kind of things that you can build with the Drukhari Start Collecting box, or this one, the Craft World Start Collecting box, and what those things look like under a Ynnari kind of rule set. So thank you so much for joining me. Click subscribe down below, and if you haven't already, click the show notes and check out Heroic Intervention, one of the podcasts that we sponsor. Thank you guys so much for all your support. Happy wargaming.